I came to fix her office lamp, a simple job for a kid like me. But when Alara whispered to stay after hours, the air shifted, heavy with something we both knew was forbidden. What she did next would haunt me every night. My name is Harlan Voss, and at 23, I was still navigating the uncertain waters of adulthood, piecing together a life that felt more like a rough sketch than a finished picture. I'd snagged this junior technician gig at a bustling marketing firm tucked away in downtown Portland, Oregon, on the gritty corner of Alder Street and 4th Avenue. The building was a relic from another era, all exposed brick walls and industrial beams that clashed with the sleek modern desks crammed inside. Floor-to-ceiling windows let in that perpetual gray light from the Pacific Northwest sky, making everything feel a bit muted, like the world outside was holding its breath. My days were filled with mundane fixes, printers jamming, video calls dropping, the occasional wiring mishap, but it kept the rent paid for my shoebox apartment in the Hawthorne district, where I bunked with 2 roommates who were as broke and ambitious as I was. Nights were for community college classes in electrical engineering across the river, dreaming of someday running my own repair shop, something solid and hands-on that didn't involve corporate politics. That Tuesday unfolded like so many before it, with rain sluicing down the windows in relentless sheets, turning the streets into slick mirrors of the overcast sky. The office buzzed with the familiar rhythm, hurried footsteps, the ping of emails, the aroma of stale coffee wafting from the break room. I'd been there 6 months, long enough to memorize faces and names, but not enough to shake the feeling of being an outsider, the young guy who showed up with a toolkit instead of a briefcase. My boss, Alara Thorne, oversaw the creative department with a quiet command that demanded respect without raising her voice. She was in her late 30s, around 38 I'd later confirm, carrying herself with a maturity that spoke of battles fought and won, or at least survived. Her dark hair was always neatly pinned in a bun, and those tailored blazers she wore hugged her frame in a way that was professional, yet undeniably graceful. But it was her hazel eyes that stuck with me, often veiled by a subtle weariness, like shadows lingering after a long night. Our interactions had always been brief, nods in the hallways, quick approvals on my reports during team huddles. That day changed everything when her office lamp began to flicker erratically, a vintage piece with a green shade that seemed out of place amid the modern chaos. She mentioned it casually in the morning meeting, and with the main IT specialist out sick, the job landed on me. "Harlan, mind taking a look before lunch?" she asked, her tone clipped and efficient. I grabbed my toolkit from the cluttered supply closet and made my way to her corner office, which overlooked the Willamette River, the bridges fading into the misty horizon like ghosts. Stepping inside, the room enveloped me in a subtle warmth, her perfume, a blend of vanilla and sandalwood, mingling with the sharp tang of fresh ink from the printer. She sat at her desk, immersed in her laptop, fingers dancing over the keys. "It's been flickering like it's got a mind of its own," she said without glancing up. I set my tools down carefully, not wanting to disrupt the organized chaos of papers and sketches scattered around. "Likely a loose wire or faulty bulb," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Shouldn't take too long." As I worked, unscrewing the base and probing the wiring, the rain intensified, drumming a steady rhythm against the glass that amplified the quiet intimacy of the space. The office beyond her door hummed faintly, but in here, it felt isolated, like we'd stepped into a pocket of stillness. She paused her typing occasionally, her gaze flicking toward me, lingering just a beat longer than professional courtesy demanded. I caught glimpses of her, the faint lines around her eyes that hinted at sleepless nights, the way her posture held a guarded poise. Office Whispers had painted a picture, a divorce a couple years back, no children. But it had been brutal, her ex chasing something younger, leaving her to rebuild amid the ruins. I never dug deeper. It wasn't my business, and prying felt like crossing an invisible line. My multimeter beeped, revealing a frayed cord that needed splicing. "This is the culprit," I muttered, stripping the wires with deliberate care. She watched more openly now, her elbows resting on the desk. You're handy with that stuff, she observed, her voice carrying a casual note that masked something deeper, perhaps curiosity or appreciation. I looked up, meeting her eyes, and felt a subtle flush warm my neck. Her small smile softened her features, revealing a vulnerability beneath the authority. Thanks, I said, focusing back on the task to steady myself. At my age, compliments from someone like her, accomplished, self-assured, hit differently, stirring a mix of pride and unease. I was still the guy scraping by on instant noodles and student loans while she navigated boardrooms and big decisions. Finishing the repair, I plugged it in. The lamp glowed steadily, banishing the flicker. Good as new, I announced, packing up. She leaned back, arms crossed thoughtfully. You've been a real help around here, Harlan. Reliable in a way that's hard to find. Her words carried weight, making me shift uncomfortably. Just doing what I can, Ms. Thorne. Alara, she corrected gently. When it's just us, call me Alara. The shift caught me off guard. She was always Ms. Thorne to the entry-level crowd. I nodded, mumbling about getting back to work, but as I turned, she cleared her throat softly. Actually, Harlan, could you stay after hours today? The conference room projector's acting up, and we've got a critical presentation tomorrow. Her request was whispered, almost intimate amid the rain's patter. I hesitated, sensing an undercurrent beyond the words. Yeah, sure, I'll stick around. Her smile returned, warmer this time. Appreciate it. See you then. The afternoon crawled by, my mind replaying the encounter while I handled routine tasks, resetting forgotten passwords, clearing a stubborn paper jam. Why me specifically? Other techs could handle it, but maybe it was just logistics. Still, that whisper, stay after work, echoed, blending with the city's damp hum. By closing time, the office thinned out, colleagues bundling up against the rain and vanishing into the evening. I lingered at my desk, sorting cables absent-mindedly, the clock ticking toward 5:30. The place grew eerily quiet, just the faint whir of air vents and distant traffic on Burnside Street. Heading to the conference room, toolkit in tow, I found the projector unresponsive as promised. I dove in, checking cables and rebooting, the task a welcome distraction. Footsteps approached, and there she was in the doorway, blazer shed, her white blouse accentuating a more relaxed demeanor, hair slightly tousled. Progress? She asked, stepping in and closing the door with a soft click that resonated in the empty space. Almost fixed, I replied, securing an HDMI connection. It'll hold for the pitch. She didn't leave. Instead, she perched on the table's edge, observing. Thanks for staying. It's been one of those weeks. No issue, I said, avoiding her eyes. But her presence filled the room, the rain a muted backdrop. Conversation flowed tentatively about the relentless weather, the looming client demands, how Portland's gloom fostered introspection. As I tested the projector, casting a clear image on the wall, talk turned personal. She inquired about my studies, my aspirations for independence. Ambitious, she noted, her tone approving. At your age, I was floundering, switching jobs like outfits. You're not that far ahead, I said impulsively, regretting it instantly. The age gap loomed unspoken, her poise a reminder of experiences I lacked. She arched an eyebrow, amused yet thoughtful. 38 feels ancient some days, Harlan. Wise enough to avoid certain pitfalls, or so I tell myself. The admission hung heavy, thickening the atmosphere. I packed slowly, her nearness palpable. As I shouldered my bag, she murmured, "Stay a bit? I could use the company." My pulse quickened. This transcended work. I nodded, and we sat, water glasses in hand, her accidental brush against my fingers sending a spark. We delved deeper. She shared fragments of her divorce, the isolation it bred. Trust doesn't come easy anymore, she confessed, eyes distant. I opened up about my imposter syndrome, the fear of never amounting to much. Vulnerability bridged the gap, odd yet fitting in the dim room. Time blurred, rain easing as city lights ignited. She stood, stretching. I should let you head out. But we lingered, her gaze holding mine in silent query. The forbidden pull tightened. She my superior, burdened by history. I the novice. Her light touch on my arm as I left. Thank you, Harlan. Lingered, a question mark in the night. This is only the beginning. You can't even imagine what she will decide to do in a few hours. The morning after, I woke to the faint glow of dawn seeping through the threadbare curtains of my Hawthorne District apartment, the memory of Alara's touch, a fleeting graze on my arm, still vivid, like a bruise you keep pressing. The rain had paused, leaving Portland cloaked in a damp, silvery haze that clung to the streets. I went through my routine on autopilot, brewed coffee from a dented pot, scalding my tongue on the first sip, a quick shower in our perpetually creaky bathroom, and a jog to catch the Max light rail, its familiar rumble carrying me toward downtown. My mind churned, replaying the conference room, her whispered request to stay, the way her hazel eyes held mine a beat too long. It wasn't just a moment, it was a door cracked open, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to push through or slam it shut. At the office, the usual chaos enveloped me, phones trilling, keyboards clattering, the faint whiff of burnt popcorn from someone's ill-fated lunch attempt. I buried myself in work, resetting a colleague's laptop that had crashed mid-presentation, untangling a mess of network cables in the server closet. But my thoughts kept drifting to Alara's office. Through the frosted glass door, I caught glimpses of her silhouette, moving with that measured grace as she met with clients. Was she thinking about last night? Or had I built it up in my head, a 23-year-old kid mistaking professional courtesy for something else? She was Alara Thorne, 38, the creative director who could probably fire me with a single email. I was just Harlan Voss, the guy who fixed things, barely keeping up with my own life. Around noon, my phone buzzed with an internal message. Harlan, can you stop by the conference room? Need the AV system checked before the client pitch. Her name on the screen sent a jolt through me. Professional, direct, but my gut told me it wasn't just about cables. I grabbed my toolkit, the weight of it grounding me as I navigated the bustling office, dodging coworkers and their half-hearted waves. The conference room was empty when I arrived, the projector humming softly from my fix the night before, casting a faint glow across the oak table. Alara was there, arranging folders with meticulous care, but her movements seemed distracted, like her mind was elsewhere. She wore a navy dress today, its clean lines accentuating her frame, her dark hair loose in soft waves that made her look less like the untouchable boss and more like someone I could almost imagine knowing outside these walls. "Thanks for coming," she said, glancing up. Her hazel eyes caught the gray light filtering through the windows, and there it was again, that flicker of warmth like a shared secret. The client's due in an hour, and I can't afford any glitches during the pitch. Her voice was steady, professional, but the way she lingered on my name felt personal, deliberate. I nodded, kneeling to check the cables under the table, my hands moving through the familiar motions. "Should be quick. Everything looked solid last night." My voice sounded calm, but my pulse wasn't. She didn't leave the room as I worked. Instead, she stayed, sorting papers, her presence a quiet pressure. She asked small questions about the system, my night classes, the weather, like she was testing the air between us. I answered in short bursts, focusing on the task to keep my nerves in check. "You must be burning the candle at both ends with those classes," she said, leaning against the table's edge, her fingers brushing a stray folder. "Late nights, early mornings. How do you manage?" "Barely," I admitted, tightening a loose plug. "Engineering's brutal. Most nights I'm up past midnight trying to make sense of circuit diagrams." I glanced up, catching her watching me, her expression softer than I expected. "I remember that grind," she said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Law school nearly broke me. You push through because you have to, but it takes a toll." She paused, then added, "It's good to have someone dependable around, Harlan. You're steady." The compliment landed heavier than it should have, stirring something in my chest. I mumbled a thanks, my hands fumbling with the cables. Steady? I felt anything but, especially with her standing there, her voice weaving through the hum of the projector. The setup was done in 20 minutes, but she didn't signal for me to leave. Instead, she asked me to help rearrange the chairs, a task so simple it felt like an excuse. I didn't argue. We moved in tandem, sliding chairs into neat rows, the silence between us thick with unspoken tension. At one point, our hands brushed as we reached for the same chair, her fingers cool and steady against mine. Neither of us pulled away right away, and the air seemed to tighten, the rain outside a distant murmur. "Sorry," she said, stepping back, her cheeks faintly flushed. She looked away, adjusting a folder unnecessarily. "It's fine," I managed, my throat dry. I adjusted another chair, hyper-aware of her standing just a few feet away, her presence like a current I couldn't ignore. I wanted to say something to break the moment, to make it normal again. But my mind was blank. She spoke first, her voice quieter now. "Harlan, do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions? Like life's happening, but it's not really yours?" The question hit me like a cold wave. I set the chair down, turning to face her. "Yeah, sometimes, like I'm checking boxes. Job, school, sleep, repeat. Waiting for something real to start." I didn't know why I said it, but it felt true. Raw. Like I was peeling back a layer I usually kept hidden. She nodded, her eyes distant, fixed on the rain-slicked window. "After my divorce, I poured everything into this place. Thought it would fix things, fill the empty spaces. It doesn't." Her voice was low, almost confessional, like she was speaking to herself as much as to me. "Sometimes I wonder if I've forgotten how to just be with someone." My heart thudded, loud enough I was sure she could hear it. This wasn't boss-employee talk. This was something else, something dangerous. I wanted to ask what she meant, to push past the ambiguity, but my tongue felt heavy. Instead, I said, "You don't seem like someone who forgets anything. You've got it together, more than most." She looked at me then, her gaze piercing, searching. "You'd be surprised," she said softly, and the words hung there, fragile and heavy. The moment stretched, the room shrinking around us. I could have closed the distance, said something reckless, but I didn't. I was 23, out of my depth, and she was my boss, carrying a past that made her untouchable. The client's arrival broke the spell, their voices echoing down the hall. Ilara slipped back into her professional mask, crisp smiles, firm handshakes, as I excused myself, retreating to my desk. The rest of the day blurred into a haze of emails and quick fixes, but her words looped in my mind. "Sometimes I wonder if I've forgotten how to just be with someone." That evening, as I packed up, another message pinged. "Harlan, can you swing by my office before you go? Lamp's acting up again." My pulse spiked. The office was nearly empty, the hum of the city filtering through the windows as dusk settled over Portland. I grabbed my bag and headed to her corner office, the city lights painting streaks of gold and blue across the glass. She was alone, standing by her desk, sorting files under the glow of the lamp I'd fixed. Her hair was still loose, catching the light, and she looked softer, more human than the untouchable director I'd built her up to be. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice quieter than usual. "The lamp's dimming again. Not sure what's wrong." I frowned, setting my bag down. "That's odd." The cord was new. I stepped closer, checking the socket, her presence a steady hum beside me. She didn't move away, standing closer than necessary, her breath even but deliberate. "It's probably nothing," she said, but her tone suggested it was anything but. I found a loose socket, tightened it, the lamp flaring back to life. She spoke again, her voice low. "You're always so calm, Harlan. How do you manage that?" I glanced at her, caught off guard. "I'm not, really. Just good at pretending, I guess." My attempt at a laugh came out strained. She smiled, stepping closer, her arm brushing mine as she reached for a pen. "Honesty, that's rare." Her fingers lingered near mine, the touch deliberate, sending a spark up my spine. Our eyes locked, the world narrowing to the space between us. The rain, the lamp's glow, her scent enveloping me. She was 38, my boss, a woman whose life was a labyrinth I couldn't navigate. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Alara, I started, my voice barely steady, but she cut me off, her whisper slicing through the silence. Harlan, I shouldn't say this, but I don't want you to leave yet. The words landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading through me. My heart raced, torn between retreat and surrender. She was close now, close enough that I could see the faint freckles dusting her nose, the slight parting of her lips. The office was silent, the city a distant hum. I didn't move, waiting for her to decide what came next, the air between us charged with a forbidden current. What she says next will change everything, for her and for me. I stood rooted to the spot, Alara's whispered words hanging in the air like smoke. I don't want you to leave yet. The lamp I'd just fixed bathed her office in a soft amber glow, casting delicate shadows across her face that traced the faint lines of her 38 years, lines that spoke of late nights, hard choices, and a quiet strength I was only beginning to understand. My toolkit lay abandoned on the floor, its weight forgotten as the city's lights glimmered through the rain-streaked windows of her corner office on Alder Street. Portland felt far away, its pulse muffled, as if the world had shrunk to this room, this moment, just the two of us suspended in a fragile, forbidden stillness. Her hand lingered near mine on the desk, the pen she'd reached for untouched, a pretense neither of us acknowledged. The faint scent of her perfume, vanilla and sandalwood, warm and grounding, mixed with the cool, damp air seeping through the window's edges. My heart pounded, a relentless drumbeat I was sure she could hear in the quiet. At 23, I was out of my depth, a kid with a toolbox and big dreams, standing before a woman whose life was a tapestry of experiences I couldn't begin to unravel. Yet her hazel eyes held mine, unguarded for once, flickering with something raw. Vulnerability, maybe, or a dare. Alara, I said again, my voice rough, scraping against the silence. What are we doing? The question felt like a lifeline, a desperate grab for clarity in a moment that was anything but clear. She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers twitched, brushing the edge of the desk, then fell still, as if she were anchoring herself against a tide she couldn't control. Her gaze dropped to the floor, then lifted back to me, heavy with conflict. I don't know, Harlan, she admitted, her voice a whisper, soft but weighted with truth. I've been alone for so long, and you're here. You're kind. You see me. Her words trembled, like she was confessing something she'd kept locked away for years. That word, kind, hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't flirtation or flattery. It was deeper, more dangerous, a recognition that pierced through the walls I'd built around my own uncertainties. I swallowed, my throat tight, trying to find solid ground. You're my boss, I said, the words blunt, a reminder to both of us of the lines we were teetering on. We can't do this. I know, she said quickly, her hands clasping together, fingers interlocking as if to hold herself back. I'm not asking for anything, She trailed off, her eyes drifting to the window where the rain traced slow paths down the glass, reflecting the city's golden glow. Sometimes I forget what it's like to feel alive, to feel someone else's warmth. Her honesty cracked something open in me, a fault line I hadn't known was there. For months I'd been invisible in this office, just the guy who fixed printers and lamps, my existence reduced to work orders and quick nods. But she saw me, not just the toolbox, but the person behind it, the one wrestling with late-night study sessions and the nagging fear of never being enough. And now I saw her too, not the polished creative director who commanded boardrooms, but the woman who carried her divorce like a silent wound, who hid her loneliness behind sharp blazers and sharper smiles. I took a step closer, not fully aware of my own movement, like my body was acting on instinct. "You're not invisible, Alara," I said, my voice low, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "I see you. I've always seen you." Her breath caught, a sharp, quiet sound that seemed to pull the air from the room. For a moment, we were still, the hum of the lamp and the soft patter of rain the only sounds anchoring us. Then she reached out, her hand trembling just enough to betray her nerves, and touched my cheek. Her fingers were cool, soft, but steady, like she'd made a choice she wasn't sure she could unmake. The touch sent a shiver through me, a spark that traveled from my skin to somewhere deeper, unraveling my defenses. "Harlan," she whispered, her voice thick with something unspoken. Fear, longing, maybe both. "This is a mistake. We both know it." "Then why does it feel like this?" I asked, my voice barely above a breath. I didn't have a name for what this was. A pull, a need, a quiet ache that had been building since the first time her eyes lingered on mine. It wasn't just attraction. It was heavier, woven from late-night talks, shared silences, and the weight of our respective loneliness. She didn't answer, but her hand stayed on my cheek, her thumb brushing lightly against my jaw, a gesture so tender it felt like a confession. Her eyes searched mine, caught between want and shouldn't, desire and duty. I was too young, too untested, a kid with grease-stained hands and a future still unwritten. She was too everything, too experienced, too wounded, too far beyond my reach. But in the dim light of her office, those truths felt irrelevant, drowned out by the gravity pulling us closer. I leaned in, just a fraction, giving her the space to pull back, to stop this before it went too far. She didn't. Her lips met mine, tentative at first, a brush so soft it might have been a dream, then deeper, more certain, like she'd been holding her breath for years, and was finally letting it go. My hands found her waist, instinctive, grounding, and she didn't pull away. Her fingers curled into my shirt, clutching as if to keep herself steady, and the kiss became a quiet storm, desperate, honest, a collision of two people who weren't supposed to fit together. It wasn't the reckless passion of youth, the kind I'd known with girls my age in fleeting college hookups. This was different, heavier, built on months of stolen glances, late-night repairs, and the unspoken understanding that we were both carrying burdens we didn't share with the world. Her past, my uncertainty, they met in that kiss, fragile and fleeting, a moment we both knew couldn't last. She pulled back first, her forehead resting against mine, her breath uneven, warm against my skin. "We can't do this," she said, but her hands stayed on me, her fingers still tangled in my shirt, contradicting her words. "I know," I said, my voice hoarse, raw with the truth of it. "But I don't want to stop." She closed her eyes, and a single tear traced down her cheek, catching the light. I brushed it away with my thumb, and she leaned into the touch, like it was the first gentle thing she'd felt in years. "I'm scared, Harlan," she admitted, her voice breaking, each word a confession. "I'm scared of what this means, what it could do to us." "Me too," I said, and I meant it. Scared of losing my job, of crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed, of falling for someone whose life was a world I couldn't fully grasp. But more than that, I was scared of walking away, of leaving this moment and never knowing what it could have been. My hand lingered on her face, my thumb tracing the curve of her cheekbone, memorizing the feel of her. We stood there, locked in that fragile space, neither of us willing to move. The rain had picked up again, a steady rhythm against the windows, and the city lights blurred into streaks of gold and blue, painting the office in a dreamlike haze. I wanted to kiss her again, to hold her until the world made sense, but I could feel the weight of reality pressing in. The office, her title, the years between us, the consequences neither of us could ignore. "Harlan," she said finally, stepping back, her hands falling away, leaving a cold absence where her warmth had been.